welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver. Great to be with you on this Thursday. Happy New Year to everybody out there. This is our first show of 2025. We got a lot to discuss. We actually have, as it turns out, a college football playoff game going on right now between Notre Dame and Georgia. Notre Dame right now at this point is up 13-3 at the half. Maybe we'll give some updates on that game throughout. But a lot of football to discuss. Why the Niners would be truly out of their minds at this point in time to pay Brock Purdy this offseason, at least in the ballpark of $60 million, if at all. Get into that in just a second to start the show. Why Patrick Mahomes not being a Pro Bowler is nothing short of insanity. Well, I don't know if I have to blame the fans for the vote, the media, whoever. Okay, however they portion the vote for the Pro Bowl. The fact that Patrick Mahomes did not get in, I think that's crazy. Get to that in about 10 to 12 minutes. Carving out the context, we got a good one why the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely made the right choice in not playing Saquon Barkley and him not going for the Eric Dickerson rushing record this weekend. Get to that. Our final Bryson's best 10 of the regular season. My top 10 teams going into week 18. Very excited about that. A lot of playoff stakes on the line. We mostly know what teams are going to be in. We don't know exactly what the seeding looks like. Obviously, Lions and Vikings on Sunday night is going to give us a lot of answers for how the NFC is going to look coming up. That's going to be a fantastic game. Get to that at the end of today's show. Every college football playoff game thus far, we'll see if Notre Dame, Georgia is exciting in the second half, has been a dud other than Texas, Arizona State, which was an insane game. Arizona State fans are pissed off about the non-targeting call at the end of the fourth quarter before overtime. I'm here to tell you that's not why they lost the game. Get to that at the end of today's show. But first, so, we can talk about Detroit. And you guys know they've been a media darling all season long. They were my darling before they're the media's darling. I just want to go and put that out there and make sure any newcomers to Carving Up Live know this. I've been a Detroit Lions guy since the 2023 offseason, coming in that regular season. So let's just go and get this out of the way. Dan Campbell, what'd y'all do again, my man?
Kneecap.
That's what they did, 40-34 in San Francisco. Now, they didn't buy a lot of kneecaps on defense, at least until it mattered most. Detroit's great. Listen, I'm still iffy. It worked out in the end on Detroit playing their starters. Well, I think that at this point, that's kind of a moot point. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about San Francisco, and I want to talk about Brock Purdy. So, there's been a growing trend in the NFL in the last couple of years with teams with young quarterbacks looking to get their first big contract. And teams, for better or for worse, have kind of just jumped in, pay him immediately. Be it Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, there's been a number of situations. In the case of the Cowboys, I think they waited too long both times to pay Dak. Somewhere in the middle is where you'd like, right? Like a Josh Allen has a great year, but has back-to-back great years. Like that's a guy you want to pay when you pay him. Same thing with Joe Burrow. That's a no-brainer. Bengals took way too long on that. Justin Herbert. With Brock Purdy, though, the discussion around it has been, hey, is he worth $60 million? I'm not sure he's worth $30 million. Because Baker Mayfield, who's miles better than Brock Purdy, more accurate, doesn't run as well as Brock Purdy does, but decision-making is significantly better decision-maker, even though Baker can be a little loosey-goosey at times. I could trust Baker more, working with less at times. What this has been all season long is confirmation for what I believe about Brock Purdy for a while now. Because my thing was this on Purdy when he first came in the league. Okay, he's way better than Jimmy G. Now, I may have overestimated way better, but I think Jimmy G's a backup quarterback in the NFL. Jimmy's actually going to start on Sunday, so good for him for the Rams. But moves better, throws better, outside the numbers, over the middle, all those things. Liked him better than Jimmy G almost from the moment I saw him when he made his debut in 2022. Then the Niners start 5-0. He looks like the early MVP frontrunner. I'm like, holy cow, Niners might be unstoppable. If this guy's the worst player in your offense, you are really going places. And then they hit a 3-game skid. You remember this? They had that 3-game skid in the middle. Lost to Cleveland, Minnesota, Cincinnati. And it's like, okay, McCaffrey's beat up and Debo's beat up and The team's not as healthy as it's been, and the defense isn't playing as well, and all of a sudden we're seeing a significantly diminished product from one Brock Purdy. Well, the good news for him is that when the 49ers are healthy, when they have all their guys together, Brock Purdy has a record. If we can pull this up here, Brock Purdy has a record in his career of 13-1, and that one loss was to the Kansas City Chiefs in this past Super Bowl. No shame in that. The problem is when those guys are gone, when there is no Christian McCaffrey or Trent Williams, any of these guys, if any one of them misses a game, Brock Purdy, 6-13 with a passer rating in the mid-80s. The fact of the matter is that with this player, and I think you saw with reactions by John Lynch. Remember when Purdy, I think when he threw that second interception, because Purdy was playing darn near flawless against a horrible defense, but darn near flawless for 2.5 or quarters or so, then throws the brutal first pick that kind of helps get Detroit back in it, and then down 3, as he did down 5 last week, and then down 3 the week before that, throws a pick to, in essence, ice the game. You saw the reactions by John Lynch, GM of the 49ers in that booth. Pretty demonstrative. Pretty like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. He's standing up, going full surrender cobra. It's like, oh, man, this is something here. Kyle Shanahan doesn't want to, embarrass his guy, but he's, Kyle can be a little bit of a hard ass to a certain degree. Like, he's like, oh, my God, what is going on? Even Kyle Shanahan said after the game, yeah, the turnovers are what cost us. We were playing right there with them. And then Purdy throws 2 picks. The reality has always been with this player is that when you plug him into the Kyle Shanahan offense, and I've been hard on Shanahan this year, my main criticism of Kyle is as brilliant as he is, he can be a little too rigid to his play sheet. The good news, the other side of that coin is, yeah, because his play sheet's so darn good, especially, it's top 3 in the league potentially. So he can get away with that from time to time. But with the limited quarterback, it's not going to work. Brock Purdy, we know, is not physically gifted. He moves relatively well. He runs okay, but not a huge arm. Okay, like not a big guy that can take a lot of hits. That's now another injury to Brock Purdy. He obviously had the brutal injury against Philly in the NFC title game 2 years ago. He's dealt with injury this season. Now another injury to his nerve. Doesn't look like it's going to be serious. He's not going to play on Sunday. My man Josh Dobbs, Space Dobbs, is going to start. Go Vols on Sunday against Arizona. Meaningless game, but still. But that's another injury, so he can't take the hits. If there's one thing Brock Purdy's got to hang his hat on, great decision-making. Brock Purdy leads the NFL when trailing in the fourth quarter in turnovers. When you need him to be that dude, when you need him to be, a $60 million quarterback, he turns into not just a good quarterback, not an average quarterback, not a below-average quarterback. He turns into an objectively horrendous quarterback. When trailing in the second half in his career, some of these games he has had all of the quote-unquote Avengers in San Francisco. Some of them he has it. Same results. Here you go. Great graphic here by Alfred. Brock Purdy, when trailing in the second half in the regular season in his career, completes about 64% of his passes. Not horrible. 1,400 yards. 5 touchdowns. 13 picks, and a passer rating of 69. And the Niners have been beat up this year. Bad news. You get Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow money, forget about it. Forget about it. First of all, you're going to have to move on from Debo, who, as down of a season Debo's had, look better as of late. It's like, okay, there's the old Debo Samuel, kind of that late season surge that he seems to be accustomed to. Brandon Ayuk's beat up. George Kittle's getting up there in age. Christian McCaffrey hurt again. Trent Williams is probably the oldest offensive lineman in the NFL at this point. You're going to start losing pieces, and it's going to be hingent on John Lynch, on Kyle Shanahan, on the Niners personnel department to hit some just home runs in the NFL draft. And that's hard to do. That's not to say they can't. John Lynch, I think, is an amazing general manager. But it's when you are paying a guy who's around the 17th, 18th best quarterback, paying that guy top of the market money, you're shooting yourself in the foot, and you are ending any opportunity you have to compete for a Super Bowl. It's over if they decide to do this with Brock Purdy. The smart thing for San Francisco to do, because this is a weak quarterback draft. Now, I wouldn't be against the Niners going the route I think my Steelers should go, and that's draft somebody maybe 3rd or 4th round, not expecting him necessarily to be your franchise quarterback, but if he gets to the field next season, show some flashes, maybe you got something. We've seen plenty of diamond in the roughs going the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds. Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, the GOAT Tom Brady, who obviously went in the 6th round. Hey, Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. Maybe you can find something in later rounds. You bring back Purdy, maintain continuity offensively, run it back. Kittle's getting older. McCaffrey's getting older. Trent Williams is getting older. You have injury history with the squad. Deebo Samuel, I predicted when they made the Ayuk deal, Deebo Samuel will not be a 49er in 2025. I am willing to state my claim to that today. It's almost impossible for them to make it work with the cap. Because keep in mind, they're also paying Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. By the way, 2 of the best on planet Earth at their position. Fred Warner, I think, is the best linebacker in football. They're paying a lot of guys a lot of money. You give this guy, and again, Purdy's good. He's fine. If you're working within a virtual perfect system, he can make it work. But the difference between Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold, I talked about this on Monday's show, because people are like, you're not as hard on Darnold. He went to a great offensive system with weapons. Why aren't you making an equivalency between these two? Because of what I said about Purdy earlier. Because he's not physically gifted, he sure as heck better be accurate. He sure as heck better see the field well. Sam Darnold, for all his faults in his career, he's always been physically gifted. It's just been a matter of, can he put it together? And for a long time, the answer was no. Now he's got Kevin O'Connell. It's like, there's the Sam Darnold. That's why the Jets took him with the 3rd overall pick in 2018 and why he was as highly touted a prospect as he was. Folks, there's a reason that Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. Now, obviously, he's outperformed that draft status. No question about it. That was a very weak quarterback draft. Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, other guys like that. Malik Willis. Purdy was obviously the best guy in that draft. But there's a reason he did go that low. He's fine. If he's playing within a structure, you're good. But we need him to be Superman. When you need him to be who you're going to eventually have to, if you decide to, pay him like these guys, a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, a Burrow, a Lamar, a Justin Herbert. If you're going to rely on that guy to be those guys, heck, these days, Jaden Daniels, to put the team on your back and you be the force multiplier, you get the best out of everybody else as opposed to vice versa. Again, it's not a knock on Purdy. He's a good player. He's a good quarterback. He's no scrub. He's no bum. But he needs everything to go almost flawlessly. I mean, I've seen Josh Allen put some crappy Bills offensive lines and no running game on his back, get to some AFC title games. I mean, I saw Mahomes with the Chiefs injuries in terms of the wide receiver unit this year and in the running game, put the Chiefs as back, could continue the winning streak until those guys got back. Now the Chiefs look great. Look at what Joe Burrow's doing this season. Yeah, he's got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. That's all he's got. O-line stinks. We're not sure about the coach. Zach Taylor's no Kyle Shanahan. That's putting it mildly. And the defense is horrendous. Yeah, the Bengals are 8-8. Is that Joe Burrow's fault? You see what the man's doing? Putting the team on his back? I mean, we've seen it. Heck, Dak Prescott last year. People are going to laugh at this, but it's CeeDee Lamb and crickets. Not a whole lot else. And the man almost won the league MVP last year. So, listen, San Francisco, if you want to pay this guy, knock yourself out. But it will cripple your franchise and any opportunity you have to win a Super Bowl, and you've been so close. I mean, you really think the problem's Kyle Shanahan? Really? The guy that took Jimmy G to 2 NFC championship games and a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl? That's the problem? I don't know. We get to a very dangerous point in San Francisco, and I've heard a lot of the Purdy supporters say this when it's, Kyle should have called the plays better. Okay, Deebo Samuel, we need you to do this. And Ayuk, we need you to catch balls, which, by the way, Ayuk couldn't catch to start the season. But you get the point. We get to all these guys before we get to Purdy. That's not how we do any other quarterback who we at least consider elite in the league. We go straight to the quarterback or straight to the coach. And if we don't get to the quarterback first, we get to him second. For some reason, some folks don't want to do that with Purdy, and I don't get it. So it'd be a disastrous move to pay this guy $60 million. Patrick Brown, what's up, Patrick? Unsturdy Purdy's elbow on fire, as he said postgame. That's a concern which a loud siren has sounded. They were healthy enough to beat Dallas, and that's it. Yeah, I knew you were going to throw the Cowboys in there, Patrick, for sure. Parnell, what should San Fran do to Kyle Shanahan? Continue to employ him? I don't know, extend his contract? Listen, Kyle's not perfect. And by the way, me and Parnell have had discussions about Kyle Shanahan in the past. He's not as high on him as I am. My thing has always been this. And again, my criticism of Kyle is pretty darn simple. Little too rigid at times to his playbook. That's what's cost him in some of these Super Bowls. That's what's cost him in some of these NFC title games to the Los Angeles Rams 3 years ago when the Rams came back and obviously went on to win the whole thing. He's a little too rigid. The thing is, though, A, he usually gets away with it because his play sheet is unreal. And B, do we see he's working with a quarterback? Let me tell you something right now. If you put Kyle Shanahan on the Cincinnati Bengals, if you give him Joseph Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins for the time being, oh my gosh. You think the Bengals put up offensive numbers now? It looked like the 2013 Broncos for crying out loud, or the 2018 Chiefs, or the greatest show on turf. That's what they look like. That's not to say he's work with nothing in San Francisco. The sum of the parts are excellent in San Francisco. But as I've said for many years, since 2021, it's a quarterback's league, and they just don't have that guy in San Francisco. They just don't. So, I'm watching that game. I'm like, I'm seeing John Lynch on television in the booth, watching the game, and he is as livid as I've seen him. You know, again, I can't read John Lynch's mind. I'm no body language expert, but that screamed. Yeah, well, I think we're going to wait till next year to make a hard decision on Brock Purdy. And if Purdy wants to hold out, listen, he's well within his right to do so. I get it. From his perspective, dang, you paid me nothing for 3 years of played in a Super Bowl, got into an NFC title game before I blew my elbow out. I've been productive. He's got every right to do that, and his agent does too. And the San Francisco 49ers have every right to say, yeah, but if it's not absolutely perfect. I mean, last night, or Monday night, rather. I mean, George Kittle was there. Deebo Samuel was there. Garindo, who's a solid running back, was there. Ricky Pearsall at $141 receiving. He was there. I mean, these guys are running wide open. Juwan Jennings, by the way. I will say, then we'll move on. Pretty excited to see Josh Dobbs on Sunday in the Kyle Shanahan offense. I'm just saying. Not saying he's a franchise quarterback, much as I'd love him to be, but excited to see what he looks like in a 49ers uniform in that Kyle Shanahan system. Because that kid, Space Dobbs, look out. By the way, real quick before we move on to the Mahomes not making the Pro Bowl segment, if I can pull this up here, Notre Dame up 20-3 over Georgia. They just ran the opening kickoff back for a touchdown to go up 17. Listen, I picked Notre Dame to win this game. I just think Georgia had too many limitations at quarterback. I wasn't a Carson Beck fan. God bless Gunnar Stockton. Coolest name in college football, by the way. But it's just not. They're off. He's not good enough. I mean, there's no other way to say he's not good enough. Certainly gets a Notre Dame defense that we know is strong. And by the way, rough showing for the SEC the last few days. I may be a Tennessee fan, but Big Ten rules it all right now. Let's just get that out of the way. Big Ten rules everything. All right. But to get to a Texas-Arizona State take at the end of the show, I did want to transition to Kansas City because this morning the NFL announced the Pro Bowl rosters. Now, thank God we don't have to watch a horrible Pro Bowl. We get to see a flag football game, which, as a former official, flag football, way more entertaining than touch football, which is essentially what the Pro Bowl became. So I like what they've done with that. And when you look at the AFC, which we know is the superior conference as it relates to quarterback play, I've said for about a year and a half, I think the NFC as a conference in general is stronger, which I mean, just look no further than Detroit and Minnesota. A 14-win team is going to be the 5 seed. That shows you how strong the NFC is. But with Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes not making the Pro Bowl roster, it's crazy. There's no other way to say it. It's crazy. I'll explain exactly why. So Kansas City this year, they're 15-1. Now, the game on Sunday against Denver means everything to Denver, means absolutely nothing to the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's say, for the sake of argument, they lose, they're 15-2. Look at this list. We'll go and put this up. Alfred, shout out to him for putting this together. List of quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era who have won 15 games or more, or whose teams have won 15 games or more in the regular season. Did that quarterback make the Pro Bowl? Go and put the list up. Joe Montana made it in 1984 with the 49ers. Jim McMahon in 1985. When we think about the 1985 Bears, what do we think of? Maybe the greatest defense ever and maybe the greatest running back ever. Jim McMahon, the only thing I remember him is the crazy headband. That's it. Jim McMahon had a passer rating in the 80s and made the Pro Bowl in 1985. But Bears won 15 games, 15-1, went on to roll their way to the Super Bowl. He made the Pro Bowl. Randall Cunningham at the end of his career, that says 1988. I apologize, should say 1998 with Minnesota. He got in. Vikings were 15-1 that year. Ben Roethlisberger in 04 didn't make it, but we got to remember, that was Big Ben's rookie year. That was very much a Steelers defense-led. Jerome Bettis, the bus, run the football on offense. That was not a Big Ben-led team whatsoever. He didn't make it when the Steelers won 15 games in 04. Brady in 07, everybody remembers that. Undefeated Patriots, that's a no-brainer. Aaron Rodgers in 2011, 15-win Packers. He won MVP of the league, by the way, as did Brady in 07. Cam Newton in 2015 obviously made the Pro Bowl. He also won league MVP. Patrick Mahomes in 2024 did not make the Pro Bowl despite leading the Kansas City Chiefs to a 15-1 record. Here's what I would like to ask, because the thing is, the Pro Bowl is not voted on by the media. It's not like MVP. It's not like Coach of the Year, all that stuff. It's a combination of fans, media. There's a lot of pieces that go into deciding who makes the Pro Bowl. Kansas City has the best record in the league. They've won the last 2 championships, and yet somehow, some way, they have actually gotten disrespected in the Pro Bowl. We all recognize the Chiefs as one of the 3-4 best defenses of football, right? Like the Chargers are the best defense of football. The Steelers have not played well as of late, but we generally recognize Pittsburgh as elite defense. We definitely recognize Philly as that. We recognize Kansas City as that. They're absolutely in that class. They had one Pro Bowler, Chris Jones. Now, Chris Jones, best interior defensive lineman in football. That's it. Trent McDuffie didn't make it. Like all the talented guys defensively. Now, a lot of that is Steve Spagnuolo, absolutely. But Kansas City's got some really good players on that side of the ball. One made the Pro Bowl. Offensively, Travis Kelce now. By the way, spite Travis having the worst of his career, I think he got a little bit of a boost from the Swifties. Listen, the power of Taylor Swift lives on. There's no doubt about it. Travis Kelce makes the Pro Bowl. 3 Kansas City Chiefs offensive linemen made the Pro Bowl. Rightfully so, by the way. By the way, congratulations to my man Trey Smith. Go Vols. First Pro Bowl, I believe, for him. Andy Reid is not a finalist, or is likely not going to be a finalist for Coach of the Year. So the coach, evidently, according to what we presume to be the voting, isn't the best, even though we all know Andy Reid's the best. The defense of Kansas City is elite, yet they have 1 Pro Bowler. And offensively, they did not have 1 skill position player outside of Kelce, who got the Swiftie boost, making it to the Pro Bowl. Well, explain that. More importantly, and I'm in the minority on this, I don't care. Let's say Kansas City goes on to win the Super Bowl. And I must say, this is a true story. Around July, when I was starting to think about my NFL picks, starting to go division by division, looking at schedules, seeing who I thought would make the playoffs. Obviously, the big pick. Who's going to the Super Bowl? Who's going to win the Super Bowl? I was going to pick Detroit to beat Kansas City. That's the God's truth. And then I remember, it was in middle of the summer. Remember the NFL does their top 100 players list that the players exclusively vote on? And Patrick Mahomes not only was not voted the best player in the league, Patrick Mahomes was not voted the best quarterback in the league. And when I saw that, I'm like, yeah, Kansas City's going back-to-back. Won the last 2 Super Bowls. Mahomes a 2-time MVP. Reid's the best coach in the NFL. Travis Kelce's one of the greatest to ever play his position. Chris Jones is the best defensive tackle. Now that Aaron Donald's retired, Spagnuolo, they don't think Mahomes is even the best player at his position in the National Football League. Yeah, I'm going to go with them. There's nothing more dangerous in sports. Nothing than an all-time great who's told they can't. How did we not learn anything from Tom Brady and the New England Patriots? How many? I swear. Listen, the majority of the Patriots dynasty, I didn't have a show yet. I started my show the last year that Brady was there. But I remember just year after year after year, it was the Steelers. Love my Steelers, but come on. It was the Chargers, and it was Baltimore. It was this team, that team. This team was going to dethrone New England. It was always, you look up, you're like, yep, they're in the AFC title game again, and yeah, they're probably going to go to the Super Bowl, and every other time they're going to win the Super Bowl. And Tom's so great. They say Tom's done, and he's winning MVPs at 40, coming back from 25-point deficits, winning a 6th Super Bowl. They said he couldn't do it at Tampa. He did it there. Have we learned nothing? Whenever they doubted Jordan in the 90s, he shut everybody up. Whenever they've doubted Steph Curry in the modern NBA era, he's most of the time shut everybody up. They doubted Simone Biles in the Olympics. She shut everybody up. Caitlin Clark shut everybody up. We think Patrick Mahomes is going to be exception? Now you're adding more fuel to the fire. Kansas City can look up and say, okay, we're going to have the best, either best or tied for the best record in football. Worst case, 15-2. We went through a gauntlet of great quarterbacks in the AFC, came out with one meaningful loss. That was to Buffalo. And Josh Allen, who we know is all-world himself, got the number 1 seed, won the last 2 Super Bowls. Defense is great, offense is clicking at the right time. And they don't think our quarterback's top 3 in the AFC. Oh, but his passer rating, are we really going to do this? How many times have we seen quarterbacks for potential losing record teams make the Pro Bowl? Not much. I think the last one to do it was Deshaun Watson in 2020, and even that was like, had a great year, but the Texans were god-awful. If the Kansas City Chiefs go on to win the Super Bowl this year, which is, I think, at this point, likely, and we look back, when the Super Bowl's over, let's say they go to New Orleans, beat the Detroit Lions, which is what I predicted before the season, still think that's going to happen. And when it's over and the confetti's falling in New Orleans, and we'll be sitting there, it's probably going to be the first thing on our mind, but eventually, if it's brought up, yeah, they said that guy wasn't one of the 3 best quarterbacks in his conference. Are you kidding me? The potential three-peat season. The potential only three-peat in the history of the Super Bowl era. Yeah, their team didn't make their quarterback didn't make a Pro Bowl one of those years. Are you kidding me? So I think what is happening right now, from a historical perspective, we've never seen this before. Teams that have won 15 games or more in the regular season, every single time in the Super Bowl era, every single time their quarterback has made the Pro Bowl. The only exception was Big Ben in 2004. That was just Big Ben's rookie season. That was a Jerome Bettis team and a Steelers defense team. Bill Cowher. Every other quarterback. Jim McMahon made it. Maybe the worst player on the 85 Bears. Worst starter in the 85 Bears happened to be their quarterback. Didn't matter because their defense was unspeakably amazing, and they had Sweetness himself, Walter Payton. And he still made it because that's what we do. The best team, we're like, yeah, the quarterback had to do something right. Let's see, Mahomes was the most clutch quarterback in football, the best third down quarterback in football, red zone, end of game, 2-minute situations, best in the world. It's like, yeah, we're going to reward you by not giving you one of the spot as one of the 3 best in your conference. Listen, we should have learned from Tom. Should have learned from Brady. You give an all-time legend an extra chip on their shoulder? Scary hours for the AFC. And I sure echo my Steelers. If we're able to get the 5 seed, beat Houston, I'd really prefer the Chargers one below us so we didn't have to go to Arrowhead Stadium. Not saying we're beating Buffalo, but dear God, that team's coming to take some names. No doubt about it. All right, take a quick break. Be back for Carving Out the Context with the Philadelphia Eagles and why they absolutely made the right call in sitting Saquon Barkley despite Saquon being 100 yards away from the single-season all-time rushing record. Get to that. Carving Out the Context in 1 minute. We're just getting started, baby. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. So quick look here at the All-State Sugar Bowl. Looks like Georgia has just scored. So now it's 20-10 Notre Dame mid-third quarter over the Bulldogs. And so how did it happen? Okay, Gunnar Stockton touchdown pass from 32 yards out. That made it 20-10 Irish. And so by the Stockton's thrown for 209 yards, 14 of 21 passing. So again, for all my skepticism of him, he's actually outperformed Riley Leonard, who I kind of like as a third-round pick or so in this upcoming draft. Wouldn't mind if my Steelers took him, by the way. So, listen, kudos to the young guy for stepping up there, doing what he's got to do. See if the Georgia defense can get a stop and if the Bulldogs can get back in the game. SEC needs to have some good showing. I mean, Texas, get to them at the end of the show. They won, but yikes, 13.5-point favorites, and they were at times a bit fortunate to get out of there with the W, but get to Texas at the end of Carving Up Live. Carving Up the Context is a segment we do every midweek show about 30 minutes in. There's a story in the world of sports or and sometimes otherwise that, is being touched on at surface value. I want to dig a little bit deeper. That's why we call it Carving Out the Context. So, as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, I want to talk about Saquon Barkley, superstar running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, who I think is a shoo-in to be Offensive Player of the Year. I don't think there's any question about that. Real quick, so he's obviously, as we know, 101 yards away, rushing yards away from breaking a 40-year record. Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record for a single season in the NFL. 101 yards away, Saquon had one game to go in a 17-game season to break it. It was announced that he, as well as other notable Philadelphia Eagles starters, will sit. Take a listen. Before we get into my take a listen to what Saquon Barkley said yesterday. This is from the Philadelphia Eagles YouTube account. Take a listen to Saquon.
So what was your reaction to finding out you're not going to play on Sunday?
Yeah, Coach asked me, what I like to do. We had a conversation, and he called me back, let me know that we're probably going to be resting, and my reaction was kind of like I told my family. Obviously, my family, probably wanted a little bit more than me. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is winning football games and we're in the playoffs. So I got a bigger goal in mind anyway.
I've been really critical of Nick Sirianni, the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, for some time. And I still have a healthy level of skepticism about, do I trust him in close games against the likes of Detroit, Minnesota, heck, Tampa. Tampa's really had Philadelphia's number in recent years. Do I trust him? Not really. With that said, got to give credit where credit's due. Got to keep it real where I can. Bravo. Bravo. Nick Sirianni for seeing the bigger picture. We all love sports here. We have some preferences over others. I like the NBA more than Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is on kind of a somewhat of a comeback as of late, which is awesome to see because baseball is my first love as a sport. But I just prefer in the NBA better. I prefer basketball better over baseball. Some people disagree. People have their preferences. Okay, there's tennis and there's golf. I prefer golf over over tennis, and some people vice versa. We all have our preferences, but there's a reason the NFL's king. Even over college football, over the NBA, Major League Baseball, WNBA, college, March Madness, there's a reason the NFL's king. Is that for all the narratives and all the discussions about MVPs, about records, we all play fantasy football, many Americans gamble on the games, for all that stuff that goes on, all the same thing, by the way, which apply to other sports, you know what differentiates the NFL? Pretty darn simple. We really only just care about, did you win or not? Did you win or did you lose? That's how we view the NFL in a very unique prism relative to other team sports, at least here in the United States of America. I'm not tuning up well enough to hockey to know. But in basketball, we do have a tendency, I can be as guilty of this as anybody, to give a superstar a pass if they lose. Like it's like, hey, if you play well, what's always the big knock? Dan Marino's a prime example. Dan Marino is one of the 5 most gifted quarterbacks to ever play the game. ever. One of the greatest prospects we've seen come out of college, out of Pitt in 1984. All-time great talent. But anytime you bring up Dan Marino, it's always, man, Dan can sling it. Yeah, you just don't really remember any big playoff wins. Now, was that always his fault? No, but he does bear some responsibility for that. For years, Peyton Manning, man, was winning MVPs, dominating the regular season, best quarterback in football. Like, it was always the narrative was, yeah, Brady, and this was an absurd narrative, but Brady, he's the system quarterback. He needs the defense and Belichick and efficiency and all that. And Peyton goes out there and sets records. But up until he got the monkey off his back in 2006 with the Colts, it was always, yeah, but Peyton can't win the big one. Can't trust Peyton. Today, Lamar Jackson's Peyton Manning. MVPs, historic seasons, and we don't trust him come playoff time. And that's the thing that hangs over Lamar's head more than anything. I mean, I have to beg. I mean, I had for years, to use an NBA example, I have for years been saying, can we put a little bit more heat on Joel Embiid for not even getting to a conference finals and continuously coming up short in big closeout games in the second round? Can we at some point, finally, it still feels like people are starting to come to that. I've been banging that drum for years. To a certain degree, Aaron Judge. But baseball, it is not that winning doesn't matter, because it obviously does. And there's certain organizations where winning means more. The Yankees, the Dodgers, two teams we saw in the World Series, my Red Sox, the St. Louis Cardinals, certain franchises, to use the SEC's term, it just means more. Baseball's primarily a record sport. It primarily is. I mean, we get so wrapped up with baseball records that if we feel like they've been infringed upon in any way, shape, or form, i.e. the steroids era, despite the fact that Barry Bonds was awesome before the steroids, obviously steroids made it better, but he was amazing before that, the majority of baseball fans do not call Barry Bonds the home run king. I do, because my thing is, record book says he is. Barry was a great player before the steroids. I'm going to give it to Barry. Majority of baseball fans now say it's Aaron Judge. Past Roger Maris 2 years ago, I remember that was a great moment. Not even a Yankees fan. Hate the Yankees. I'm a Red Sox guy, but respect Aaron Judge. Respect the AL single season record. But people rip McGuire, rip Sammy Sosa, despite the fact that they saved the sport, because people thought they'd infringed upon the records. Nobody really talks about this ever. There was a play 3 seasons ago with my man TJ Watt of my Pittsburgh Steelers, where he probably, I forget if it was the last game of the season or one of the last games of the 2021 season, when he was chasing down the legendary Michael Strahan's single season sack record. I remember there was a play that was brought up on Twitter when something had been discussed about TJ, and it was like, TJ probably should have gotten this half sack, and therefore TJ Watt would be the single season sack record king, topping Strahan. But no one really cares about that, because when people think TJ Watt, we're like, man, he dominates, and man, we'd love to see him in a big game at some point. It would be nice if the Steelers could win a playoff game for once. Saquon Barkley, and more importantly, the Philadelphia Eagles saw the bigger picture. And this is why they're one of the most well-run franchises. I can hate the Eagles all I want. They're one of the most well-run franchises in professional sports. From Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, to arguably the best GM in the sport, Howie Roseman. Nick Sirianni, I've been critical of. This was the right call. Because one thing, too, that people aren't taking into account, people that think Saquon should have played, should have gone after the record. Well, you know what Philadelphia would have had to do? Play their offensive linemen. They would have to play guys like Lane Johnson, who's a veteran, who's played a long time in this league. And Lane Johnson, after the game against Dallas on Sunday, where the Eagles wrapped up the division in the 2 seed, he's like, man, I could use the week off. It'd be nice to be fresh. And by the way, does any position group, or groups rather, take more of a physical pounding than linemen? Offensive and defenses, I mean, it's just, you are moving another grown arse man, 300 pounds, against his will for 3.5 hours, gonna take a toll on your body. Lane Johnson's an older player. He's like, man, I could use a rest like before the playoffs. We're trying to go after a Super Bowl here. Philadelphia saw the bigger picture. It's about Super Bowls here. Like, we've only got one Super Bowl in history. We won it, I guess that would have been 7 seasons ago. Like, we want to continue to maintain that standard with a great owner, great GM, elite roster, solid coaching staff. We want to maintain that standard. It's not about records. Listen, would it have been cool for Saquon to get it? Yeah, but Saquon did. It's not like Saquon got the raw deal in this. You don't get the raw deal? The Giants. And by the way, they did it to themselves. Saquon Barkley leaves, rushes for 2,000. And by the way, is he not one of the easiest guys to root for in the National Football League? Humble, works his arse off, competes 100%, 100 miles an hour every single game. Saquon Barkley does not need a record to define his greatness. If he does, maybe he wasn't great enough, which that's not the case because he is amazing. Look what he's doing behind the Philadelphia offensive line. That's been elite, seems like my whole life. And so I give so much credit to Philadelphia for understanding that people will remember Saquon Barkley breaking the single season rushing record from Eric Dickerson. By the way, anyone that would have tried to poo-poo that just because he got an extra game than Dickerson, he has 34 less carries as we sit here today through 16 games. So it would have been perfectly legitimate. He would have gotten it on less attempts. With that being said, people remembered it, but if Philly goes out in round 2 to, Tampa or the Rams or somebody, it's like, yeah, cool, he got the record. Fell short again with a loaded roster. What's up with Jalen Hurts? Is Lane Johnson going to retire? Sirianni, is he in the hot seat? Like, if you could ask anybody, including Saquon himself, you want a Super Bowl ring, you want the record, it's unanimous. And that's what makes the NFL great. It's not that these other sports don't care about winning, because they obviously do. You play to win the game, as the great Herm Edwards said. That's sports. You play to win the game. But the NFL, winning is absolutely paramount at all costs. Long term, seeing the bigger picture, looking ahead, not just living the here and now. We live in very much a here and now. The last thing that happened is the most important thing that happened, and the most important thing that ever will happen just happened. That's the society we live in. Would like to see us maybe at some point get away from that starting this new year in 2025, but that's what we live in. Philadelphia went the opposite direction, and I commend them for it. So this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles for seeing the bigger picture. Listen, and I said on Monday, by the way, I was like, I kind of like to see him go for the record. I want to see history, but I'm a fan. I'm darn sure not an Eagles fan, but I do like witnessing history. It's why I love dynasties, why I enjoy watching Kansas City. I love watching history. But Philly's like, yeah, we want to make a different kind of history that's going to be remembered for all time. Saquon Barkley's record may eventually get broken. Like Eric Dickerson's record was almost broken. People always remember that Super Bowl. Can't take that away from us ever. So shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles for their decision-making in their front office. And from Nick Sirianni as well, by the way. I mean, this is the Eagles brass coming together, understanding what the mindset was coming into the season and not deviating away from that. This is Super Bowl or bust. We have one of the best rosters in the sport. I think probably number 2 right behind Detroit. Minnesota's in that ballpark as well. They don't have quite as much talent defensively as Philly does. That's just a Brian Flores job with the Minnesota Vikings in terms of what their success on that side. But they've got all the components to win it. They almost did win it a couple of seasons ago. That's the mindset, and the Eagles aren't deviating from that. Major, major, major respect. By the way, I did see this, that apparently Myles Garrett referred to himself as the best defensive player on the planet. Now, he is, I mean, it's not like it's not exactly like Myles Garrett doesn't have a case for that, but I mean, literally across the board throughout their careers, TJ Watt has been the better player. So, Myles, you're awesome, but TJ Watt. No question about that. Interesting. Adam Schefter, about 6 minutes ago, just reported that the New York Jets completed an interview with ESPN analyst Louis Riddick for their general manager vacancy. I have had brief interactions on social media with Louis. I obviously, as anybody who watches the NFL and the ESPN coverage, have watched him on First Take, NFL Live. He literally just called a game the other day, the Penn State and Boise State game, college football playoff game. He calls college football games. Louis Riddick is one of the smartest individuals in the media, in the sport. For as poorly run as the Jets are, this would be a home run hire. I think Louis is as smart as they come. I think this would be an unbelievable hire by the New York Jets. Listen, I don't know who else they're interviewing for the job. I don't know who else they're looking at. That would be an outstanding move for New York. And my guess is if Lewis comes in, first thing he's going to do, that Aaron Rodgers drama, we're out on that business. We are out on the Aaron Rodgers drama for all time.
You done messed up, Aaron!
Why did he come there to begin with? Why did he come there to begin with? Looks like we're dealing with connection issues. See if we can get this back going. Sometimes we'll have some connection problems on our show. Once we get that back up, once it kind of resolves and gets back up, looks like it's starting to right now. We'll go and get back to regularly scheduled programming. So again, midweek show, we do carving up the context, and we do Bryce's best 10, my top 10 teams in the National Football League. Let's go without further ado. Our final one of the season, Week 18, top 10 teams of football, and here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Start at number 10. The 10th best team in the NFL is the Washington Commanders. Washington is the 10th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, again, there's been a long vacancy. They haven't been on Bryce's best 10 in about a month and a half. What they've been doing lately on the opposite side of the football, particularly Jaden Daniels, in the fourth quarter, in overtime, he's been nothing short of phenomenal. Jaden Daniels is a crazy stat. In the last 30 seconds of regulation and or overtime this season, he's thrown 5 touchdown passes. That's 2 or 3 more is what the stat said, than any player in NFL history, any quarterback in NFL history since the 1970 merger. So this guy, it has been kind of nip and tuck for a little bit there between Jaden and Bo Nix. Some of that hindsight was because Jaden wasn't totally healthy. I still think if I had to vote for Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels is my number 1, Brock Bowers is number 2, then Bo Nix. Bowers having an awesome season. But for Washington, though, listen, I have major concerns about their defense. I don't think it's a Dan Quinn problem. I think it's a defensive personnel problem. They're going to go heavy defense in the draft. Terry McLaurin's excellent. They run the football effectively. But what Jaden Daniels does with his movement, with his arm, with his legs, he was dubbed as Lamar Jackson 2.0. Thus far, through year 1, he's starting to live up to that. Looks like he's going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year, deservedly so. The Washington Commanders are the 10th best team in the National Football League. For like the 3rd or 4th straight week in a row, at number 9, it is the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are the 9th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, with the Rams, I swear, it's not very pretty. This is now 3 straight games where they haven't generated much offensively. They haven't scored 20 in the last 3 games, okay? 12 against San Francisco, 19 against the Jets, and 13 against the Arizona Cardinals. This is just not a team that's really clicking right now on that side of the ball. The good news is for them, A, they've won all 3 of these games, which tells you their defense, their very young defense, has stepped up to the challenge, and B, Stafford, older quarterback, Cooper Kupp, older player, game means nothing this week. They wrapped up the NFC West. Sean McVay rests his guys. He was kind of the originator of doing that for the preseason, which was a smart call on his part. Being able to get these guys rested, these veterans, these previous champions, ready to go for the playoffs. You get at least 1 home playoff game. And I'm sorry, I think the Rams are one of the most dangerous teams in the NFC. I understand that on the upside of a Detroit, a Philly, a Minnesota, but could they beat any of those teams? 100%. They did beat the Vikings. Okay, they lost in blowout fashion to Philly, so maybe that's a bad matchup. But they probably should have beaten Detroit all the way back in week 1. They almost beat them in the playoffs last year as well. So this is a sleeping giant. Don't rule out the Los Angeles Rams as championship contenders. I picked them to go to the NFC title game before the season. Who's to say they couldn't do that? We always get one team a year, about one team a year, that shocks everybody in getting there. The Los Angeles Rams are the 9th best team in the National Football League. Staying in the same city, same stadium, this team moves up 2 spots from last week. It is the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are the 8th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So, the thing with LA this all season long has been Justin Herbert's not a game manager, but his stats would reflect game manager, like minimal turnovers, but not a whole lot of pop. No, not a whole lot of big plays down the field. Ever since getting Ladd McConkey back in this offense, this has looked like a really productive team in that side of the ball. I've gotten some good energy going the last few games against the Broncos, scoring 34 against New England. I get it, New England's bad, but still 40 on the road as a West Coast team. Not short week, but 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff. That's impressive to show up and take care of your business the way that you did, and the Chargers wrapping up a playoff spot. I think Jim Harbaugh, if I had to take the 3 best football, not NFL, football coaches alive, Jim Harbaugh's on that list. He is as great as they come. Justin Herbert's on a heater. I do think there should be some pressure on Justin coming in the playoffs, where it's like, we see the talent, we see what you're able to produce, we see the numbers. Herbert's awesome. I mean, I've been a Herbert guy since he was at Oregon, but we do need to start at some point seeing a playoff win. It looks like it's probably going to be them against Houston or against Baltimore. We'll see how it shakes out. But this Chargers defense is the best in the NFL. This Chargers offense is clicking with one of the best quarterbacks in football. Watch out for LA. The Chargers are the 8th best team in the National Football League. At number 7, dropping 3 spots from last week, it is the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are the 7th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. I've not flip-flopped on any team this season more than I have Green Bay. I start the season, okay, they're going to make the playoffs. They're a double-digit win team, but not quite enough quite good enough to beat Detroit for the NFC North. Who knew Minnesota was going to do what they did? A little too young, not quite ready yet. And they kind of validated me in losing some of these games to Philadelphia, losing now twice to Minnesota, twice to Detroit. But then they went in that stretch where they were beating Seattle and the Saints. I'm like, okay, maybe there's something here. Jordan Love gets hot second half of seasons. Jordan Love, the first every drive other than the last 2 against Minnesota on Sunday, he had a pass rating in the 60s. Last 2 drives, pass rating of 130 something. So he's a little bit of a roller coaster right now. Matt LaFleur needs to kind of steady the ship. I still love Josh Jacobs running the football. This Packers defense does concern me long term. I don't know if I love them against the likes of, say, a Matt Stafford, who they very well could potentially face in the first round, a Baker Mayfield, guys like that, Jared Goff, Sam Darnold. So I don't know if I trust Green Bay's defense. Listen, Green Bay, they need to get Christian Watson back. They're still one of the most loaded wide receiving cores in the National Football League. 2 great tight ends, 4 excellent wide receivers, a running game with Josh Jacobs. Jordan Love's got to be more consistent in order for Green Bay to surprise some people and go deep in the playoffs. The Packers are the 7th best team in the National Football League. At number 6, staying where they were at last week, it is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are the 6th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. 6, I get it. Feels low, but again, just given who's above them, I just like what I'm seeing from those teams more as of late. But for Philadelphia, listen, Jalen Hurts out. It's going to be really imperative. He's out with concussion to get him back before their playoff game next week. So they're resting their guys. Again, you heard me and carving up the context. Kudos to them for valuing a Super Bowl and the long-term goal over what would be an historic achievement for Saquon Barkley, but nonetheless could jeopardize potentially their championship hopes and aspirations. This offensive line outside of Detroit is the best in football. Some metrics say it could be the best. Denver's in that conversation as well. The difference in this Philadelphia team, they were, despite the funk last year at the end where they just absolutely collapsed down the stretch, they were still an elite offense generally from start to finish. The problem is their defense just couldn't get a stop. This year, the two defensive backs with Mitchell and DeJean, great pass rush. This Eagles team is really scary, is more than capable of going on a championship run. Still don't quite trust Nick Sirianni. That's probably the big separating factor between them and the teams above them. Philadelphia is still very, very real in the NFC. They're going to be the 2 seed. Watch out. They're going to get at least 2 home playoff games. The Eagles are the 6th best team in the National Football League. At number 5, moving up 2 spots from last week, it is the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are the 5th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. This is, I think, it might be the highest I've had Baltimore all season long. I think I had them around 4 or 5 at some point earlier this year. They're hitting on all cylinders, and they've been an elite offense all season long. Lamar's an MVP finalist. Derrick Henry for a while there was as well. Finally, this Ravens defense has shown up. Since the bye, a case can be made by the numbers. They've been the best defense in the National Football League, led by the best, arguably the best linebacker in the sport, Roquan Smith. Zach Orr's done a good job kind of getting this defense back, playing its best football. John Harbaugh, we understand, is one of the elite coaches in the league. And listen, it's when Baltimore plays the way that they should play, which is we're going to run through Derrick Henry. Lamar's going to be special from time to time. Get the ball out to Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers. They can be really, really special. The problem is they can be a bit too inconsistent. We'll see if that's able to be sustainable for them and if they deviate from that like they did against the Kansas City Chiefs last year. But listen, the stats and the results don't lie. They mollywopped Houston on Christmas. They took care of Pittsburgh, and Lamar, as we've talked about in the show, has really struggled against my Steelers. I still don't know if I really trust in the playoffs, Lamar in particular, but I can't lie with what I'm seeing right now. The Ravens are the 5th best team in the National Football League. At number 4, moving up a spot from last week, it is the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are the 4th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. We've talked about all season long great this defense is, how Brian Flores should not, let's put it this way, should not be in Minnesota next year. Okay, that man should get another head coaching opportunity. He did a good job with Miami. I think Flores would be a great fit in a number of locations. New Orleans could potentially be a good fit for him to potentially rebuild that. Love Brian Flores. But as of late, it's been the Vikings offense. Now, we've talked about Sam Darnold and the production, Jefferson, the best receiver in the game. But as of late, I think we're seeing Sam Darnold's making the Vikings decision this offseason. I think clearer and clearer. You can't just let this guy walk on the open market. You got to bring back Sam Darnold, give an opportunity if he puts you in position to win the Super Bowl this year. I'm sorry. He's missed his left tackle for big chunks of the season. Okay. The defense in Minnesota, that's more of a Flores thing than it is a personnel thing. Kevin O'Connell, I think right now is probably the coach of the year. Kevin O'Connell, Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, like kind of those the guys I consider for the award. What he's done with this group is nothing short of phenomenal. Sam is making I say NFL throws. He's making tight window Allen Mahomes Burrow throws into tight coverage like against Seattle 2 weeks ago against the Packers. The Vikings are letting him turn it loose. This is no game manager type situation. As far as I'm concerned, give Darnold at least some love in the MVP discussion because he's been in that. Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings are the fourth best team in the National Football League. The team they're going to be playing on Sunday in what is the biggest game, maybe, in the history of the NFL regular season, given the stakes, the firepower, the number of wins, 28 combined wins for these teams. They're going to be playing my number 3 team, the Detroit Lions, staying where they were at last week. The Lions are the third best team in the National Football League. And here's why. Dan Campbell, what'd y'all do once again to the 49ers?
Kneecap.
It's actually, by the way, that was Detroit's first win in the Bay Area in San Francisco since the mid-70s. It's been a half century since Detroit has won in San Francisco, kind of wanting a good get back after the NFC title game last season. Look, the defense, just because of the injuries, has been nothing short of just unwatchable. In the last 5 games, they're giving up like 32 points a game. They can't get stops on a consistent basis. With that said, A, they're getting healthier on that side. B, their offense is more than good enough, probably the most talented offense in professional football, to be able to offset that to a certain degree. Jared Goff's been efficient. The offensive line in Detroit, I can't say enough about them. They're the best in the sport. No David Montgomery, and Jahmyr Gibbs have said, hey, I'll be Sonic and Knuckles. I'll take on both roles. I'll be the bruiser in between the tackles, as well as the speed guy on some screen passes, etc. Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, the speed guy. I mean, this offense just has so many different facets. Ben Johnson is just, he pulls out a clever play each and every week. I hope he has enough for the playoffs because it feels like he's using them against the Bears and the 49ers. I want to save that for like a Minnesota and a Philly, a Tampa Bay in the postseason. Nonetheless, this team is rolling. They've got 2, I think, potential future head coaches on their staff in Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Offense is stacked. I really have some concerns about their defense. That's why they're not higher on this list. But you can't hate on what Detroit's done. I've got them as my top NFC team because I think they're going to win the NFC. The Lions are the third best team in the National Football League. At number 2, same place where they're at last week, it is the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are the second best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, listen, similar to Detroit, concerns about Buffalo's defense. Good performance against the Jets, but it is the Jets. It is Aaron Rodgers. It's a horrendous offense. So we got to see it kind of bear itself out, especially depending on their playoff opponent. It could be Cincinnati, who's explosive. Miami, not explosive in the cold, but Tyreek Hill is there. And Denver, who can hit you at times with the big plays. So we won't really get a good enough look into what Buffalo's defense is going to be until the wild card round. But Josh Allen's the MVP of the NFL. I get his numbers aren't as gaudy as the likes of a Saquon Barkley, a Lamar Jackson, a Joe Burrow. But what he's done to despite, listen, this is the best offensive line maybe in the AFC. It's by a long shot the best offensive line that Josh Allen's had with James Cook and others. But for as good as this receiving core is, Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman, Kincaid at tight end, the load that this guy's carried, which he's done for his entire tenure in Buffalo, and he's not making the reckless mistakes that I always criticize him for. That, to me, that's MVP stuff. Allen's been phenomenal. Sean McDermott, are there questions about, late game situations, the clock in the postseason? Certainly. But listen, I think they are absolutely, not just in the AFC, in the NFL, the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs. They're built to beat Kansas City. They could get the Chiefs potentially. Allen's played Mahomes close in the past. We know this. The Bills are the second best team in the National Football League. And that leaves the pretty obvious number 1. Best team in the NFL is the team with the best record, back-to-back champs. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League, and here is why. Do I need to tell you why? Here we go. Weekly thing. They got the best quarterback. They got the best coach. They got one of the greatest tight ends ever. They got the best interior defensive lineman in football. They got the best defensive coordinator in football. They're going to have home field advantage, and they're being doubted. Andy Reid's not going to be a coach of the year finals. Spags may not be an assistant coach of the year finals, potentially. That looks like it's going to go to Ben Johnson or Brian Flores. Both great, but can we give Spags some love? Come on. Patrick Mahomes isn't a Pro Bowler, evidently. Listen, as I said in my Chiefs segment earlier, the most dangerous thing to do in professional sports is to give an all-time legend, in the case of Kansas City, all-time legends, plural, Mahomes, Kelsey, Reed, Jones, give them bulletin board material when they're already trying to accomplish something pretty darn historic, which no teams won 3 straight Super Bowls, no teams three-peated. They're trying to be the first team to do that. I think they're more than capable. I think they're going to do it. The Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League. All right, let's look at the top 10 list right here. Let's go and put up the graphic for those that maybe didn't catch the entire segment. So from 10 to 1, at number 10, the Washington Commanders. At number 9, the Los Angeles Rams. Number 8, the Los Angeles Chargers. Number 7, the Green Bay Packers. Number 6, the Philadelphia Eagles. And now to the top 5. At number 5, the Baltimore Ravens. At number 4, the Minnesota Vikings. Number 3, the Detroit Lions. Number 2, the Buffalo Bills. And number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's check the comments. Patrick, I hope Louis Riddick gets a chance. Get rid of the toxicity in New York, including Aaron Rodgers. Get him out of there. The all-time disappointment for an NFL team, courtesy of, and then he's got the eye roll emoji. That is, you know what? If there's one emoji I could use to describe Aaron Rodgers, it would probably be the eye roll emoji. I mean, listen, the routinely lectures us on how important football is to him and how, how he wants to win and all this, and then his actions run directly in the face of that. So, but hypocrisy is something we've become accustomed to with this particular quarterback. Which, by the way, I will say, and then we'll move on to the final segment with Texas and Arizona State. By the way, what's the score of the Georgia-Notre Dame game? What do we have? Let me pull it up on my phone. It is, okay, so Notre Dame has extended their lead 23-10 over Georgia. The Dogs have the ball inside the 30 of the Fighting Irish, and it's a 4th and long, 4th down 13 to be exact. So, yeah, Georgia's kind of on the ropes here. Notre Dame looking to advance to the college football playoff semifinal. They would play Penn State, right? Yeah, they play Penn State in the Orange Bowl, and then Texas, Ohio State. Listen, I was really disappointed in Oregon. Oregon was my national. Obviously I'm a Vols fan, so of course I'm going to pull for Tennessee first and foremost. But after that, especially after Tennessee got eliminated by Ohio State, at that point I was like, I'm all in for my pick. Oregon, they were my preseason pick to win the Natty. To face Georgia, by the way, which I moved off the Georgia one, stay with Oregon, and they got just rocked for 60 minutes at the Rose Bowl by the Buckeyes. So, yeah, kudos to Ohio State. I mean, look, that's one thing, too. We got so caught up in the Ryan Day discussion and how he's on the hot seat. If you lose to Tennessee, he's gone. Even if you lose to Oregon, he still could be gone. And I think, forgot. I don't even think I forgot, because I had Tennessee beating Ohio State. I didn't have them blowing them out. I thought Ohio State had the better team. I just thought Josh Heupel, there was a coaching advantage there. But we forgot, I think, in that stretch, Ohio State might have the best roster in college football. It's honest to God, especially now that Oregon's out, I think the national championship is going to be played at the what bowl game is that going to be? The Cotton Bowl in Dallas and Jerry World. By the way, big home field advantage for Texas. But I think those are the two best rosters in college football. Texas, Ohio State, that is going to be a clash of college football blue bloods. Sark looking for his first natty. Same with Ryan Day. Both have taken a lot of heat from their fan bases, from the media. Both heavily maligned quarterbacks, Will Howard, Quinn Ewers. That's going to be a fun one to watch. I'm looking forward to that. But speaking of Texas, though, so they got out of there by the skin of their teeth, 39-31 in double overtime in the Peach Bowl against the Arizona State Sun Devils. Shout out to Arizona State, Cam Scadaboo. Holy moly. Can we look at Cam Scadaboo's stat line, by the way? So, running the football, 30 carries for $143 and 2 touchdowns. Receiving, he led Arizona State in receiving, 8 catches for 99 yards, including one big 62-yard catch that set up a fourth quarter score. And then passing the football, 1 for 1, 42 yards, and a touchdown on 4th in the season to get Arizona State back in it to mount the comeback, and a perfect QBR, as you might imagine, because 1 for 1 and a touchdown. So Cam Scadaboo leaving it all out there, and kudos to this Arizona State team for doing what they did. They were the rightful, Big 12 champions, were one of the hottest teams in college football down the stretch of this season. And a lot of Sun Devils fans are really upset, really irritated that a late targeting call in the fourth quarter was not called in Texas. We don't have the video to show you, but essentially there's a pass over the middle on a 3rd down. Arizona State is marching up the field, tie game, could win it with the field goal. Pass over the middle. It looks to be a clear helmet-to-helmet defenseless receiver, the whole bit by the book targeting, and it was not called. And the game ended up going overtime, then goes to double overtime. Arizona State wins the football game. So I know a lot of Sun Devils fans, and I get it. Arizona State is used to a lot of success throughout their program history in baseball, not so much on the gridiron, especially at the college football playoff level. So I get why they're pissed. I understand that. What I would say to you is this, and I always say this when fan bases or anybody blames refs. It's the refs' fault we lost. Look at the moments that happened before that, and if there are things that happen after that, look at those as well. First of all, Arizona State was down 16. Now, their defense was awesome. Texas had 24 at that point. That was good. 7 of those came on a punt return. So Arizona State really held Texas by and large in check offensively throughout the course of that game. But that sucker goes overtime. You get like that was good luck, good fortune, if you will, in the favor of Texas with the targeting call not being called there. But Texas got the ball back, drove into field goal range, and the poor kid Brett Auburn. Listen, I rip kickers all the time because I'm like, guys, you have one job. It's not an easy job, but it's one job. It's the only thing you're there to do is to make kicks. I'm not going to be as hard on Auburn because he is a college kicker, but back-to-back go-aheader in this case would have been a game-winning kick, ends up hitting the upright. Arizona State survives by the skin of their teeth, goes to overtime. Sun Devils score. Okay, Texas, I believe it was 4th down, and was it 4th down and 12, 13? I believe. Do we have this? At 4th down, 13 at the Arizona State 28. Arizona State runs an all-out blitz. Now, kudos to Texas. Had the tight end, the running back in to pick up the blitz, did a good job giving Quinn Ewers enough time to deliver the tying touchdown. But that can't happen. 4th down, 13, up 7 in overtime. You cannot give up a 28-yard bomb or strike, rather, to tie the game. Like, that's on you. That's on Arizona State, who had played admirably well throughout the course of that game defensively. And then in the second overtime, the pick at the end. So Arizona State had other opportunities, and they had things go in their favor over the course of this game. By the way, to mount a comeback that they did in the fourth quarter, you do need some things to go your way. You do need the other team to have to some degree, self-inflicted wounds, depending on how big the deficit is, obviously. So as I get why they're frustrated, I respect it. I understand why they're pissed off, but that was far from the reason they lost the game. And as I always say, if you needed a call or no call to go in your favor in order to win, that's on you. Play better. Give yourself enough of a cushion to where you don't need that to go in your favor. That's what I've always said. Like, there's, over the course of the game, we always remember the end because it's the last thing that happened. It's a recency bias, but we don't remember that bad holding call in the second quarter that may have, taken away a touchdown. By the way, there was a play with Boise State when they were trying to come back on Penn State. Holding call fourth quarter. I think it might have been illegal hands to face. One of the two wiped away a touchdown. Boise State couldn't come back. Now, those calls happen over the course of a game, and you have to find a way to overcome them. So, and again, a lot of these, the blitz on 4th down, I get why they brought it because Ewers isn't a mobile quarterback, but once that thing got picked up and you got a receiver just running wide open down the middle field, for as much as I criticize Quinn Ewers, he's not going to miss that throw. He's just not. He's an SEC quarterback. So, kudos to Arizona State for their fight. Texas, as a 13.5-point favorite, survives by the skin of their teeth at the end on the interception and double OT. And as a result, we get Texas, Ohio State, and sign me up, baby. So all day long. I mean, listen, these games have been duds outside of Texas, Arizona State. Thank God the Sun Devils came back and made that really, really fun at the end. But interesting. Speaking of games that have been duds, this one looks like it's not going to be. Georgia ended up converting on 4th and 13 that we just told you about because of a defensive pass interference. And they're down inside the red zone for Notre Dame. So I'm going to need to watch in this game. So with that is all the time here for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live tomorrow. Big show, playoff scenarios, last week of the regular season, same as usual. If I were a Batman, Bryson Bleak bet, upset of the week, not been my best season in any of those. Looking to finish the season strong as we go into the playoffs, trying to round ourselves in a playoff form. So tune in to the show tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. Please, just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. And by the way, if you're watching our show live in about 45 minutes or so, a little over 45 minutes, live on the Grid Network's YouTube channel, if you happen to be watching us here, you don't have to go very far to catch us. The 8 o'clock spot, our weekly game show on the Grid. I'm normally the host of the show. I hold all the power, on these shoulders, all the weight of who wins this contest. It weighs on me this week because, as I announced on Monday's show, that Tuesday's New Year's Eve show, that I'm going to be in the Disney College program, so I won't be in the studio. I won't be able to host 8 o'clock spot. Still will do Carving It Up, but I'm like, hey, before I leave, I want to be a contestant. So Mike Guido's gonna host. He's hosted the past. He's done a fantastic job. So for Guido to give up his contestant seat for the night, for me to get my first opportunity as a contestant, appreciate Mike for doing that a lot. But tune into that in 45 minutes on the Grid's YouTube channel. It's gonna be a blast. We got fantastic participants, contestants, great hosts. Gonna be a lot of fun. Tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time tonight. 45 minutes from now on the Grid Network's YouTube channel. All right, we will see you guys tomorrow. Well, hopefully in 45 minutes, you'll stick around for the 8 o'clock spot. We'll see you in tomorrow for Carving Up Live at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Be sure to like, share, comment, and please hit that subscribe button down there. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. See you then, everybody. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. And Happy New Year, baby! Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.